I cannot believe how overtly racist this book was. Hello, mortals. I am the BookTube Goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. Last month, I joined Gavin Hetherington's Readathon, and my Fairy Bookmother picked out 5 books for me to read. My Fairy Bookmother is a complete and total bitch.
Hello, darling. Did I hear you call my name?
Almost all the books you picked for me were terrible.
But didn't they teach you a lesson, darling?
Did they, though? Really?
Well, which of the books did you enjoy the most? And let's go from there.
Oh, go away, you! Okay, the book I enjoyed the most was a huge surprise to me because I didn't really think I was going to like it. But the book was called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume, published in 1970. And it was really a short book. It just took me an afternoon to read. I think it was really a novella length, and it's a really simple book. I don't think it'll ever be made into a movie or anything like that because really nothing happens in the novel. The story is about Margaret Simon. She is 11 years old and has moved from New York City to the suburbs of New Jersey. It's all told in the first person, and it has a pretty strong voice. Judy Blume can really capture the personality and the beginnings of angst of a tween girl. Now, the thing that really has made this book famous or infamous is that it deals with issues that young girls, tween girls, deal with. Insecurity about breasts, wanting a bra even if you don't need a bra, fear of getting a period, competing with the desire to get a period so you don't feel like you're behind the rest of your friends, peer pressure from other girls, being attracted to boys, making lists of boys' names. Now, all that is treated with a pretty light hand and actually has nothing to do with what I think is the main storyline, which maybe you can guess from the title. And it's Margaret's struggle with her belief in God. She talks to God a lot, and it's kind of cute. Her mother is Christian, her father is Jewish. The parents seem to be agnostic, telling her she can choose her religion when she's old enough. But of course, her Jewish grandmother pressures her towards Judaism, and Margaret goes on a journey visiting different synagogues and churches to find out where she can be closer to God. Anyway, it's a simple story. It's strongly written. It's strongly told. I didn't think it was the type of book that I would like, but of all the middle grade books I read last month, this was the one, surprisingly, that I enjoyed the most. So I give Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, my blessing.
Oh, darling, didn't you have a story to tell about when you were in the 5th grade?
No. We don't need that story.
It's about when you didn't know what a period was.
Fine, I'll tell the story. In 5th grade, and this is a true story, all the girls ran to the bathroom laughing and screaming, and a teacher finally came over and broke it up. But apparently, one of the girls had got her period, and the other girls were, I guess, teasing her about it. Man, little girls can be so cruel. But anyway, my friend Mitchell and I asked some girls, well, what happened? What's all the big commotion? And they giggled and they wouldn't tell us, but we kept asking. And finally, one girl said, she got her period. And neither of us knew what a period was. We asked the girls, well, what's a period? And they'd laugh at us and they'd run away. And so finally, a boy we knew who had sisters seemed to know what a period was. So we kept asking him, well, what's a period? And he goes, well, a bleeding period. Bleeding? What does that mean? But he wouldn't tell us more than that. I don't know if he knew or not. But Mitchell and I, we discussed this. We were like, well, what the heck is a period? Because we knew it had to do something with puberty. So we figured out, well, what's the difference between a girl and a woman? So we came to the conclusion that it must be what happens when your breasts start growing. You know, they must like fill with blood, and when they get too big or they grew too fast, they would bleed through the nipples. So I swear to God, for about a year, I was kind of grossed out by breasts because I thought they were filled with blood. And yeah, that was my little story. Okay, are you satisfied, Fairy Bookmother?
Darling, you were such an idiot. Well, what book did you like next?
Well, I would have to say Frostheart by Jamie Littler, the group book picked out by Gavin.
And you love that book, yes?
Okay, Frostheart wasn't a bad book, but look, everyone has different tastes, and I didn't enjoy this as much as Gavin and others did. But I did order a physical copy, mostly because of the illustrations. So let's talk about what was good. First, the illustrations and artwork are really great. And there's a lot of artwork in this. Also, the imagination of the author, Jamie Littler, is really expansive. He built this world of ice, populated it with different races, humans, Yeti, there's walrus people, and I think little fox people. And he populated it with these gargantuan monstrosities that terrorize the ice world. And the story is about a boy named Ash who lives in the town of Fira, and discovers that he may have magical powers that manifest through song, which may mean that he is a song weaver, which is a type of wizard or magic user. However, song weavers are shunned and singing is banned. So anyway, the story is really a quest story as Ash seeks to uncover the mystery of a song that his parents had left him. Here's my issue. This book is written in the third person in a clear window style of writing. When I say clear window, that means you don't see the writing, you just see the story, as opposed to what I call stained glass writing, where the writing itself is as much a character as any character in the story. We also call this type of writing as having a strong voice. Now, one of the reasons why I like middle grade books is because they usually have strong voices. Pick up Harry Potter, or Lemony Snicket, or Percy Jackson. And one of my recent favorites is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. And whether they're written in first or third person, the writing itself has a personality. Frostheart does not have a strong voice. It's clear window. You just see the story. So your enjoyment of the story has to do with the plot and the storyline and character development. Unfortunately, I thought the pacing was slow. For about the first half to 2/3 of the book, it seems like there were only 3 main plot points, so it felt like there was a lot of dragging. There wasn't enough conflict in the literary sense to make me invested in what was going on. So because of those issues, I'm going to have to zap Frostheart. I wanted the writing to have a stronger voice or the story to be more dynamic and fast-paced. And I'm not saying this is a terrible book. This is to me, a 3-star book, which means it's an okay book. But when I zap or bless a book, that means either I recommend or I don't recommend a book. And I don't know about you, but I just like recommending 4- and 5-star books to people. You know, so if you think about it, if a friend comes to you for a book recommendation, would you recommend a book that was just okay, Or would you recommend a book that you really thought was great? Here she comes.
You are so picky, 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 picky. What about that spooky book? Surely you'd like the book with the pussy on it.
Go away. Go away. Okay, let's talk about City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. And let me get this out of the way. The cat on the cover does not have a very big role in the book. Damn it, if you put a cat on the cover, I want the cat to have a big role in the book. Is that asking too much? I don't know. The story is about a girl named Cass who can see ghosts. And there's a little boy ghost named Jacob who is her best friend. And there is a mystery as to why Cass can see ghosts and why Jacob follows Cass around. Cass keeps her powers a secret, which is kind of ironic because her parents are ghost hunters. And her parents take her on a ghost hunting mission in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is the City of Ghosts. It's written in the first person and there is a voice. I like the writing itself, but I was just bored. I wasn't invested in the main story. There is a villain, but the villain appears late in the novel, and it almost seems like the villain is a MacGuffin, a device not really integral to the story itself, but created just to move the plot forward. I just did not think it was a strongly plotted novel. Also, and this is just me, but I'm coming to the conclusion I don't think middle grade horror novels work for me as an adult reader. Maybe I would have liked this if I was 12 years old. I don't know. But I want horror novels to fill me with suspense and to creep me out. And I just don't think I'm going to get that with a middle grade horror. Maybe I'm wrong. If there's a middle grade horror that really spooked you as an adult, let me know in the comments. But anyway, City of Ghosts left me flat, so I'm going to have to zap it. I don't really recommend it for adult readers. And by the way, I like Victoria Schwab as an author. I thought her Shades of Magic series was really great, but I think I'm going to pass on this series.
So the book needed a little more of the pussy? What about The Serpents Secret by Sayantani Dasgupta, the fantasy based on Bengali mythos?
Oh my gosh, where do I start with this novel? It was so bad. The plot is the strongest part of this story. It's about a seemingly ordinary girl named Kiranmala or Kiran who lives in New Jersey. But on her 12th birthday, she discovers she is a princess of some mystic spiritual dimension, and her parents are kidnapped by otherworldly forces. Then two princes show up to help her rescue her parents, and the adventure ensues. Rather than dragons and wizards and traditional trappings of high fantasy, we have Rakosh and Pakiraj. I'm butchering those names, I know, but they are demons and flying horses, respectively. And there are demon queens and other facets of Bengali mythos, which is a really refreshing change and informs me about a culture that I'm frankly a little ignorant about. So as Kira, or Kiranmala, discovers her heritage and her powers, she goes on a hero's journey that leads straight to the underworld. So there are some very familiar plot elements or story arcs if you know Joseph Campbell's works or read a screenwriting how-to book. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the writing. It's a first person, and the main character, Kira, is the narrator. I've found that authors and publishers of middle grade books sometimes think that their readers like their kids, their main characters, to be snarky and general smartasses. And I get it. It can be funny and elevate the kids to hero status, because what kid doesn't like to see another kid sass adults and come out on top? So I suppose it's meant to make the characters quirky but relatable. But here's the danger. The danger is that in scenes that should be serious, the characters or the writing can't help but be flippant or snarky or sassy. And if the characters don't take their situation seriously, then how can I, as a reader, take them seriously? So let's trot out the old snarkometer, patent pending. This gauges for me whether a middle grade book is in the danger zone of being too snarky. Now, this was a big issue for me, because even when events became really heavy for Kieran emotionally or physically, the tone of the novel undercut any investment I had with the character, because the snarkometer is in the red zone, which was mostly because of the main character, Kieran. And remember, this was written in the first person from Kieran's point of view. So I have to say, it made me end up not really liking this main character. I thought she was too angsty, too sarcastic, too cool for school, as we used to say 100 years ago. Now, the secondary characters, especially Prince Neil, were more likable, but none of the other characters were really greatly developed. And then, for some reason, Albert Einstein is a character in the book presented as a mythic figure, which I thought was really off-putting, given that the one thing I really enjoyed was the Bengali mythos, and that really didn't track. I didn't understand why we needed Einstein. Anyway, I found it hard to relate or be sympathetic to Kira. Now let's talk about the pacing. Pacing is not the most important aspect of a novel. Sometimes a great novel has a real slow pace because the story is more character-driven rather than plot-driven. But for an adventure-type book, I want a really fast-paced story, something that makes me really want to turn the page. Now, this is one of the strangest books as far as pacing goes for me. And I've never said this about a book before, but the pacing was too fast. It seemed like events were happening at such a fast pace that I didn't have time to absorb the story, much less develop a relationship with Kieran. Events happened too fast. Wham, wham, wham. I had trouble figuring out what was going on. I felt that the pacing of the action didn't leave any room for character development. Sometimes you just need to take a literary breath and step back and let your main character be introspective. Now, I didn't hate this story. Honestly, I didn't. I really liked a lot of the aspects of it. I really liked the Bengali mythos and the story of a hidden princess stuck in New Jersey who goes on a hero's journey. But I just can't recommend this novel, and so I zapped. I just had too many issues with the over-the-top snarkiness, the odd pacing, and a character that I didn't relate to.
Well then, you must have liked the last book, the Dr. Dolittle book.
Dr. Dolittle was the worst book of the bunch. I cannot believe how overtly racist this book was. How would you feel opening up an innocent-looking middle-grade book and seeing the N-word? And this wasn't a Huck Finn situation where the N-word was used to highlight racism in a story about freeing a slave. No, this was just gratuitously crass and racist. So let me back up. I knew I wanted to read the original version, first published in 1920. So I went to Project Gutenberg. By the way, if you don't know what Project Gutenberg is, it is a database with the full text of novels that are in the public domain. And you can download novels in Kindle or EPUB format, or even as HTML if you want to read it online, or convert it to PDF. And if you like audiobooks, there's also a site called Librivox that does the same thing with audiobooks. And I'll link both those sites below. Anyway, I got the original text, and even putting aside the N-word, the story itself was extremely cringeworthy. And the first novel is very short. It's about 30,000 words. And it's about Dr. Dolittle. You probably know the story. He's a physician who learns to speak with the animals and turns his practice solely to treating animals. He finds out in the first novel, the story of Dr. Dolittle, that there is a sickness among monkeys in Africa, and so Dr. Dolittle travels to Africa. There, the doctor runs into the king and queen of Jolliginki, and the illustrations of black people are really revolting. And then there's Prince Bumpo, a black man who wants to marry a white princess like he's read in fairy tales, European fairy tales. So he asked Dr. Dolittle to bleach his skin white. I am not making this up. Okay, so I was fairly certain this was not the book I was remembering, having read when I was little. And after a little research, I figured out that the book I was thinking about was called The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle, published in 1922. And it won the Dewberry Award, which is the most distinguished award for children's literature. So surely this one couldn't be as bad as the first one. But nope, this book too used the N-word. Now the first book was third person. This is told in the first person from the point of view of 10-year-old Tommy Stubbins. And this was obviously written in more innocent times, I guess. Tommy has a injured squirrel, and he's looking for Dr. Dolittle, who was away on a voyage. But he never met the doctor. But he runs across him during a big rainstorm, and the doctor, who is a complete stranger, mind you, says, "Oh, come home with me and get out of those wet clothes." So,
danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
I don't know if that would have been written today. Anyway, the story is about how Tommy becomes Dr. Dolittle's assistant. And together with Prince Bumpo, who makes a return, they voyage to South America to find a floating island, which is inhabited by Indians.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Oh dear, can you guess what the story is about? If you guess, it is about the white savior rescuing savages from their uncivilized state. Congratulations, you guessed the plot. The Indians literally describe Dr. Dolittle as the mighty white man.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
The Indians here don't even know what fire was, so Dr. Dolittle brings them fire. And the Indians are so grateful they make Dr. Dolittle their king. Now, here's the kicker about this novel. I'm talking about The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle, not so much the first book. But if you read other children's books around this time period, like Peter Pan or Mary Poppins or The Wizard of Oz, I think you'd find the imagination, the writing, and the storytelling is right up there with these other books, if not better at times. But the subject matter, I'm going to have to zap this book.
Now, darling, the Dr. Dolittle books published today are Bullerized.
Yes, they are, and that's a great word. Bullerization. That word is derived from Thomas Bulwer, who revised Shakespeare plays to make them more suitable for women and children. The term Bullerized now means any type of rewriting or censorship, whether it be for sex or violence or racism. But even if you get a Bullerized or abridged version of the Dr. Dolittle novels, I can't see how they can move the really offensive white superiority that runs through them. So I love Gavin and I love the Believathon Readathon, but the books I got just weren't for me, thanks to my evil Fairy Bookmother. So until we meet again,
And may all the books you read be blessed.